We're going to go a little bit off course on this one. I think this is worth talking about, though. I made a video. I can't say that this time. My dad made a video called "Hair Loss, You're Fighting the Wrong Enemy, Jack Attack," and someone commented, and their name is Christoph Polis. Here's what they said: "Quote, except the real warrior never gives up. The truth is that it's about genetics, but that doesn't mean that nothing can be done about it. I do not know if you have heard about the discovery of South Korean scientists who will probably end the baldness. It's about CXXC5 protein," end quote. I think there's a paradox in this comment, and I'm grateful for it, and we need to explore it, but I think there's a paradox in this comment. So my dad's video was talking about how you're fighting the wrong enemy. If you're fighting hair loss, then you're already losing the battle because it's part of your DNA. So if you're fighting your DNA, you're not going to win. What you're really fighting is the concept that your body is changing without you, and in your mind you think you should be a guy that has perfect hair, but your DNA says otherwise, that's not who you're meant to be. If you fight that, you're fighting in vain. That was the point of his video. But another way of looking at it is that you're giving up the fight if you're not trying to help find a cure for hair loss. So I think that's definitely a different perspective, which, I respect anyone who feels that way. One of the things I've done in 2017 is I've created this whole concept that a lot of people that watch my videos are what I call hair loss helpers. They want to find a way to either find a way to cure hair loss or to stop it or to disguise it or get a hair transplant, something to do to alter that destiny. Then there's people like me who are balding advocates, and I'm like, let's just let it happen. I'll adapt accordingly as I go bald, my hair gets shorter. And to me, it's that simple. I'm not saying one way is better than the other. It's just that I've chosen my path and let other people choose theirs. But it's an interesting thing that, like, as far as this concept of fighting, fighting hair loss, that in theory, I'm not fighting hard enough because I'm not in favor of a South Korean cure for hair loss. But I think, again, that just goes back to someone who ultimately is a hair loss helper compared to me, where I'm like, I hope it all works out for you, but I still think there's going to be side effects. I just think that it's so obvious that it appears that 80% of the guys who experience premature hair loss or whatever are the ones who grow a beard by their 18. And especially the fact that this is done in South Korea. I've been to South Korea, and which helped reinforce my belief that Asian men are obviously less likely to grow facial hair sooner in life, but they're less likely to lose their hair. But when they do, it's a bigger deal. So I think it's interesting, ultimately, the concept of what are we fighting. And I think that's what I want the takeaway for this video to be. What are you fighting? Who's the enemy? If hair loss bothers you or intrigues you enough to even be watching my videos, it's taking up space in your head. You're thinking about it. If we were to try to put a face on the enemy, the opponent, who would the opponent be? Would it be hair loss itself? Or is it truly your perception of yourself that's changing without you? And I really think for most people, it's the perception of who you think you should look like based on who you were as a teenager and not who you're supposed to look like as a person in their 20s or 30s. That's what I think. But I think it's a personal question that you've got to answer for yourself. But I want you to think about that. Who is the enemy? If we had to make something the opponent when it comes to hair loss, who's the opponent? Is it your own DNA causing you to do this? Do you blame yourself? Do you blame science for not finding a cure yet? We can send people to the moon, but we can't cure hair loss, which goes back to what I've made videos on before. Are we trying to cure something that's not a disease to begin with, which gets into a cosmetic thing? So, answer that. Will you do that for me? I think that'll help me to know how to respond again in the future and maybe make another video about this. But ultimately, when it comes to hair loss, who's the opponent? Who is the enemy? If we know that, we can find out who we're fighting. And then we can learn maybe we're fighting in vain.